Room 14. I took the job because I was broke. I want that on the record. I did not take it because I wanted a story, or because I was looking for something strange, or because I had any kind of romantic notion about working the overnight desk at an old motel on the edge of Tulsa. I took it because I had been laid off from a warehouse in February, and my unemployment had run out in July, and by the end of August, I was 3 months behind on rent, and my landlord had stopped being patient about it. The job was on Craigslist. Overnight desk clerk, small independent motel, midnight to 6, $12 an hour cash, no experience necessary. I called the number on a Tuesday afternoon. A man with a thick old voice answered on the second ring. He asked me 3 questions. Did I have a criminal record? Did I have a drinking problem? Could I start tomorrow? I said no, and yes. He said come at 11 on Wednesday. The address was the Trails End Motel on East 11th, half a block from a stretch of highway that had stopped being important sometime in the 1970s and had never quite figured out what to be since. I drove out there Wednesday night at 10:30. The place was exactly what I expected. A long, single-story building shaped like a flat L, 14 rooms in a row, with a small office at the corner, a cracked asphalt parking lot with weeds coming up through the seams, a neon sign on a tall pole that read, Trails End, in red letters with the middle 2 flickering. There were 3 cars in the lot. The office window glowed warm yellow against the dark. I parked. I went in. The man behind the desk was 80 if he was a day. He was small and thin and very upright, the kind of old man who looked like he had been a tougher younger man and had not entirely let go of it. His name was Harold. His wife's name was Doreen. She came out of the back office while we were shaking hands, dried her own hands on a kitchen towel, and looked at me for a long moment with the small, careful attention of a woman who had been judging young men at this desk for 60 years. Then she nodded once, to herself, and she went back into the office without saying anything. Harold poured me a cup of coffee from a glass pot on a hot plate. He gestured for me to sit down on the wooden chair beside the desk. He sat down on the swivel chair behind it. He looked at me for a long moment, the way his wife had, and then he said, "Before we talk about the job, I'm going to tell you about the rules. The rules aren't suggestions. The rules are the job. If you can follow them, we'll get along fine, and you'll have steady work for as long as you want it. If you can't, you'll quit on your own within a week, and that's all right too. But I'd rather know which of those is going to happen tonight, before I waste my time." I said, "All right." He took a folded piece of paper out of the drawer of the desk. It was lined notebook paper, yellowed, written on in a careful blue ballpoint hand. He set it down on the desk between us. He did not let go of it. He said, "Most of these are common sense. Don't sleep on the job. Don't drink on the job. Don't smoke in the office. Don't let anyone behind the desk for any reason. Don't open the cash drawer unless you're making change for a guest. Don't give out room numbers over the phone. Don't tell anyone you're the only one on the property at night. You know all of this already. You can read the list in a minute. Those rules will keep you out of trouble with me." He paused. He took a sip of his coffee. He said, "There are 3 other rules. Those rules are different. Those rules will keep you alive." I waited. He looked at me to make sure I was paying attention. I was. He said, "Rule 1, never check anyone into room 14, no matter what they offer to pay, no matter how late at night, no matter how cold it is, or how tired they look." Room 14 is not available. It has not been available since 1971. If anyone asks for room 14 specifically, by number, you tell them it's occupied, and you offer them room 15, and you do not, under any circumstances, take their money for room 14. He paused. Rule 2. If you hear the bell on room 14's door ring at night, you do not go to the door. You do not call out. You do not call the police. You do not call me. You sit at this desk, and you keep your eyes on the office door, and you wait until morning. The bell will ring as long as it rings. It will stop eventually. When it stops, you do not check on the room. You wait. I will come at 6, and I will deal with it." He paused again. His coffee was steaming in his hand. He was looking at me with the absolute, unembarrassed steadiness of a man who has decided that this is what he is going to say, and that what I think of him for saying it is not his problem. He said, "Rule 3. If at any point during your shift, anyone, guest, stranger, employee, anyone, comes to the front desk and asks you, by name, who is in room 14, you say, 'I don't know.' You don't say it's empty. You don't say there's no one in it. You don't say you can check the registry. You say, 'I don't know,' and you don't say anything else. And if they ask again, you say, 'I don't know' again, and you keep saying it until they leave. Do you understand?" I said, "I think so." He said, "I need you to actually understand, not think you do. Repeat the 3 rules back to me." I repeated them. "Don't check anyone into room 14. If the bell rings, stay at the desk until morning. If someone asks who's in room 14, say, 'I don't know.'" He nodded. He folded the paper. He put it back in the drawer. He said, "The paper stays in the drawer. You don't take it home. You don't show it to anyone. You don't tell anyone about these rules. When you train your replacement, if there ever is one, you tell them what I told you, and they read the paper here at this desk. You understand?" I said yes. He said, "Good. The job's yours. $12 an hour, cash in an envelope every Friday. Doreen will run your background check anyway because the insurance requires it. But I trust you. You start tomorrow night at midnight." I said, "Can I ask what's in room 14? He looked at me for a long time. His coffee had stopped steaming. He took a slow sip of it. He set the cup down on the desk. He said, very quietly, "You can ask. I'm not going to tell you. And I'm going to give you a piece of advice that I am going to ask you to take seriously, son. Do not, at any point during your time working here, try to find out. Do not look up old newspaper articles. Do not ask Doreen. Do not ask the regulars. Do not, especially, walk past room 14 in the daytime and try to see in the window. The rules are the rules because we don't ask. The rules work because we don't ask. You ask, and the rules stop working. Do you understand what I am telling you?" I said yes. He said, "I don't think you do, but you will." I started the next night. I drove out at 11:30. The lot was empty when I pulled in. Harold and Doreen had already gone home, or to wherever it was they went at the end of their day, and the office was dark except for the small lamp on the desk that they had left on for me. I let myself in with the key Harold had given me. I made a pot of coffee. I sat down behind the desk. I read the paper out of the drawer one more time, just to be sure. Then I put it back in the drawer, and I started my shift. The first night was uneventful. 2 guests checked in, a truck driver who paid in cash and asked for a wake-up call at 5, and a couple in their 40s who had been driving from Memphis and just wanted a bed. I gave the truck driver room 8. I gave the couple room 12. I made small talk. I sipped coffee. I watched the parking lot through the office window. I did not look at the door to room 14, which was the last door on the L, just visible through the office window if you angled yourself right. I did not let myself look at it. At 6, Harold came in. He had a thermos of coffee and a paper sack with 2 breakfast burritos from a place down the road. He gave me one. He asked how the night had gone. I told him fine. He nodded. He said, "Good. The first one is the hardest. You sit here for 6 hours wondering what you've gotten yourself into. The second one is easier. By the 3rd or 4th, you stop thinking about it." I said, "Can I ask you one thing?" He said, "You can ask." I said, "Has the bell ever rung?" On your shift. On any shift. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "Yes. 4 times in 53 years. Once when my daddy ran the place. Once when I was working nights in the 70s. And twice since I bought it from him." I said, "What happened?" He said, "The bell rang. Whoever was at the desk sat at the desk until morning. The bell stopped. The next morning, the room was checked. Everything was fine. The room was empty, the way it always is. The bell does what it does. The room does what it does. We do what we do. That's how the rules work." I said, "What would happen if someone went to the door?" He said, "I don't know. And I'm very glad that I don't know." I worked the desk for the next 2 weeks without incident. I got into the rhythm of it. Midnight to 6, the parking lot getting darker and darker as the late-arriving guests stopped coming. The coffee pot, the small radio Doreen had left on the back counter that played soft country music on a station out of Tulsa. The small ritual of doing the day's paperwork in the last hour before Harold arrived. I started to like the job. I started to like Harold and Doreen. I started to think I could do this indefinitely. On the night of the 3rd Wednesday, the bell rang. I want to walk you through what I remember, because I have thought about it every night since, and I want to be sure I am telling it the way it happened, and not the way it has become in my memory. I was at the desk. It was just after 3 in the morning. I had been working on a crossword puzzle Doreen had left on the back counter. The lot had been quiet since about 1. The last guest had checked in at 12:40, a young woman who had been driving alone and who I had given room 7 to because it was the closest to the office, and I thought she would feel safer there. I had not heard a single sound from the property in 2 hours. The bell on room 14 is a small brass bell. I know this because I have looked at it during the day, walking past with Harold during my training. It is mounted on the inside of the door, the way old shop bells used to be, so that if anyone opened the door from inside, the bell would ring. I had never heard it before. I did not know what it sounded like. But when it rang at 3:08 in the morning, I knew exactly what it was. It was a small, clear sound, the kind of bell you might hear in a memory of a place you have not been to in a long time. It rang once. It paused. It rang again. It paused. Then it began to ring at a steady, even rhythm, once every 2 or 3 seconds, soft and clear, the way a person rings a bell when they want to get someone's attention without being rude about it. I sat at the desk. I did what Harold had told me to do. I kept my eyes on the office door. I did not get up. I did not pick up the phone. I did not move. The bell rang for a long time. I do not know exactly how long. I did not look at the clock because I was afraid that if I looked at the clock, I would also look at the parking lot through the office window. And if I looked at the parking lot, I would see room 14. And I did not want to see room 14. I sat at the desk. I looked at the office door. I breathed. The bell rang and rang. After perhaps an hour, it might have been less. It might have been more. I genuinely do not know. The bell stopped. There was no last ring that was different from the others. It simply stopped, mid-pattern, the way a clock stops when its battery dies. I did not move. I had been instructed not to. I sat at the desk for another 2 hours, and I watched the office door, and I didn't look at the parking lot. At 5:40 in the morning, the front door of the office opened, and a man walked in. I am writing this part very carefully, because I want to be sure I am being clear. The man who walked in wasn't Harold. Harold does not come in until 6. The man who walked in was, I want to say, in his 60s, gray-haired, well-dressed, in a brown wool coat and a small, dark hat of the kind men used to wear in the 1950s and 60s. He came in through the front door. The bell on the front door, a different bell from the one in room 14, A normal motel office bell rang as he came in, and he closed the door politely behind him, and he came to the front desk. He smiled at me. He had a kind face. He was carrying a small leather suitcase. He said, "Good morning. I was wondering if you might tell me, who is in room 14? I want you to understand what I felt in that moment. I did not feel afraid, exactly. I felt the way you feel when you are sitting in a car at a red light, and the car beside you starts to roll backwards. There is a moment when you think your own car is moving, and then your brain corrects, and you realize you are still, and the other car is the thing that is moving, and the wrongness of the situation is located in space, in a way you had not understood a second before. That is what I felt. The wrongness was not in me. The wrongness was in the man at the desk, who had come through the front door at 5:40 in the morning in a hat that men had not worn in 60 years, who was carrying a suitcase, who was waiting politely for me to answer his question. I said, "I don't know." He looked at me. His face did not change. He said, "I'm sorry." I asked who was in room 14. "Could you check the registry?" I said, "I don't know." He smiled. It was a kinder smile than the first one, somehow. He said, "Son, I think you misunderstand me. I'm asking a very simple question. I would like to know who is in room 14. I would like to visit them. I have been told to visit them. I have been told to come to this desk and ask, and to be given an answer." I said, "I don't know." He stood there for a long moment. He looked at me the way Harold had looked at me on the first night, with the steady patience of a man who has been at this a long time and is not going to be hurried. He said, "Are you sure?" I said, "I don't know." He set the suitcase down on the floor. He took off his hat. He held the hat in both hands at his waist. He said, "I have been coming to this desk for a long time. Not this body, but this work. I have asked your question of every man and every woman who has sat in that chair since 1962. Some of them have told me. Some of them have not. The ones who have told me have not been here long after. The ones who have not told me have lived long lives. I am not threatening you. I am explaining the situation. The bell rang tonight. That means someone is ready. You are at the desk. You are the one who decides. I am asking you kindly, son, who is in room 14? I said, "I don't know." He looked at me for a very long time. The clock on the wall behind me said 5:48. Harold would be here in 12 minutes. I did not know if I could last 12 minutes. The man at the desk did not move. He did not press. He just stood there with his hat in his hands and his suitcase on the floor, and he looked at me, and after what felt like a very long time but was probably only a minute, he nodded, very slowly. He said, "All right." He put his hat back on. He picked up his suitcase. He turned around. He walked to the front door. The bell on the front door rang as he opened it. He paused in the doorway. He turned back. He looked at me one more time. He said, "I'll be back. Maybe not tonight. Maybe not this year. But I'll be back. The bell rings, and I come. That's the work. I'll see you again, son." He went out. The door closed. The bell on the door stopped ringing. I sat at the desk. I did not move. At 5:59, Harold's truck pulled into the parking lot. He came in at 6 exactly. He had the thermos and the paper sack. He looked at me. He looked at my face. He said, "It rang." I said, "Yes." He said, "And he came." I said, "Yes." He set the sack down on the desk. He went to the back office. He came back with a glass of water. He set it down in front of me. He sat down on the wooden chair beside the desk, the way I had sat when he first interviewed me. He said, "Did you tell him?" I said, "No." I said, "I don't know." I said it every time. He nodded. He let out a long, slow breath. He said, "Good. That's good, Jake. You did good." I said, "What would have happened if I had told him?" He said, "I don't know. None of us know. The ones who told didn't come back. Whatever happens to the man who tells, it happens somewhere other than here. Whatever he carries away in that suitcase, it isn't the same person who was sitting in this chair. That much I'm sure of." I said, "Who is he?" Harold looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "I think he's the work. I think he's what the rules are about. I think room 14 is where it sleeps, and he is what wakes it up. And he can only do it if someone at this desk gives him permission. And the permission has to be in a very specific form. He has to know the name of who is in there. You don't know the name. None of us know the name. That's why the rule works. We can't tell him even if we wanted to. The 'I don't know' is the only honest answer there is." I said, "What's in room 14? He shook his head. He said, "I don't know." He paused. He said, "And I am very glad that I don't know." I worked the desk for another 6 years. I worked it until Harold and Doreen sold the motel to a young couple from Arkansas who were going to flip it into a boutique inn. Harold sat the young husband down at the desk on his last day and gave him the paper out of the drawer, the same way he had given it to me, and he made the young man read it and repeat the 3 rules back to him, and the young man laughed a little, and Harold did not laugh with him. I drove past the Trail's End last spring. The renovations are mostly done. They've kept the original sign, Trail's End, in red neon, the middle 2 letters no longer flickering. All 14 rooms were painted, the cracked asphalt sealed and striped. There is a small chalkboard sign in front of the office that lists the room rates. Room 14 is on the board. It costs the same as the other rooms. I do not know if the young couple kept the rules. I did not stop to ask. But sometimes, late at night, when I cannot sleep, I think about the man in the hat. I think about the suitcase. I think about the way he said, "I'll be back." The bell rings, and I come. That's the work. I think about the young husband at the desk now, working through his first overnight shift, deciding whether the 3 strange rules were worth the trouble of remembering. I think about the bell on the door of room 14. I hope it has not rung yet. I hope, when it does, that whoever is at the desk says I don't know. I hope they say it like they mean it.
This has been a story from the other side of now. If you enjoyed this story, like, comment, and subscribe.